Hello and welcome to this episode 5, the final episode of the 100. Just going through a selection of 100 games from my collection, chatting a bit about them and why they're special. We've made it this far, well done. It's been 2 years in the making. So without any further ado, this is games 20 to 1. Enjoy. Number 20 is the XFiles for the original Sony PlayStation. It also came out on PC and Mac. And it's a point-and-click game with fully digitalised backgrounds and FMV sequences. As you can see here, Mulder and Scully are in it. They're not saying very much. In fact, they're barely in it. In fact, they're in it at the very beginning, and then Mulder rocks up a bit later, and then they find Scully, and then that's it. The game's over. Because they're very busy and they're very wealthy people. So yeah, you point and click your way around Seattle and various parts of the Pacific Northwest of America on the hunt for them. It's the same as any other point and click game. Look for the hotspots in the room, pick things up, rub things against other things to make things happen. But this time, it's a script written by the people who made X-Files, which is brilliant. Of course, when I was a young lad and this came out in 99. I leapt to this because I was loving it. I was a massive X-Files fan, and I don't know. It doesn't hold up. It's really very cumbersome to play now. But as a young man, as an 18-year-old, wow, playing this, I would have been losing my freaking mind over it.
19.
This is Probotector for the NES, and I'm going to say it, I prefer Probotector to Contra. I think it's way more interesting. I like the idea of having two peacekeeping robots blowing up stuff than two muscly dudes based on Arnie and Sly Stallone. Of course, this only happened in Europe due to Germany and their laws on selling violent games to minors. So rather than having two muscly dudes shooting stuff, you had two kick-ass robots. It's pretty much the same, really. The thing for me about this game is I actually got this game when I had chickenpox. I remember distinctly, I didn't know if I knew it was coming or not, but I remember lying on the sofa underneath a fleecy blanket, being all greasy, miserable and itchy. And then my dad came home from work and he gave me Probotector for the NES. And so my chickenpox was all better now.
18.
It's Ghost Squad for the Nintendo Wii, based on the hit arcade game. It's a game that answers the question, how many men can you fit into a 3-man dinghy? The answer is about 68. It's an on-rails light gun game. My favourite thing in the arcade. Brilliant, loved it. Good old Sega AM2. Made this for the arcades back in the early 2000s, 2004. And there was a sequel. I played them both, and they are brilliant. Of course, the Wii controller makes this effortless, but it makes this amazing. Just wave your Wii remote, give it a little waggle in the face of some terrorists, bring them to justice. It's a weird thing it says in the game, you are Ghost Squad, leave no trace, and yet you kill about 6,000 terrorists. So much like Time Crisis and Virtua Cop, you'll get a reticle around the enemies that are going to shoot at you in the near future, so you've got to take those bad boys out first. You can upgrade your guns, you can use your EXP to buy upgrades, you can find upgrades in stage, like extra mags, laser pointers, and of course health kits to keep you in ship shape. Fun little bonus fact, from this game a friend and I used to play it at work, and we adopted the Ghost Squad high five, which is you go a high five, a low high five, and you kind of bump your forearms together in a really, really macho fashion. Brilliant.
17.
This is Spellbound, one of the earliest games I ever played on the Amstrad CPC. And it's a menu-driven graphical adventure game by David Jones. It's part of a series of games. Before this one there was Finders Keepers, and after this came Nighttime and Stormbringer. They're all pretty much the same. They'll feature still titular character, the Magic Knight, trying to rescue people and himself. Picking up objects, giving objects to people, using things, casting spells, fulfilling mini missions. Fun fact, so the guy that made this, David Jones, he actually came to the Centre for Computing History, and I met him there. And I thought, I'm going to go and say hi to David Jones. So I walk over to him, and I get there and realise I haven't prepared what I'm going to say. So I kind of look at him and go, "The Spellbound was one of the first games I ever played." And he looked at me like I was a mental man. So, yay me, well done.
16.
My game 16 is Cybernator on the SNES, and it's an absolute stonker of a platform, flying, shooting mecha game from the good folk at Konami. And this game is actually the prequel to a game that had already come out on the Mega Drive called Target Earth, which I didn't know about, so I started researching it. Also looks amazing. That also had a remake on the PS4 not so long ago, called Assault Suit Lanus, I believe. But yeah, this is Cybernator, and this is absolutely gorgeous. That pixel art is phenomenal. The mech design, the enemy design, just absolutely mind-blowing. The coolest thing about it though, the thing that sold me on this game, is the use of the shield. And I don't know why, but even now, I'm nearly 40 years old, and every time I pull the shield out and stop a bullet, I think that's badass. Of course, this is stage 1. Now, if you had this, and if you grew up playing this, you would know this is the worst way to play stage 1. Because if you played stage 1 without firing a single shot before you got to the boss, you started level 2 with a ridiculously overpowered napalm cannon. Brilliant. Little tip there for you kids. Don't shoot before you see the boss.
15.
This is Streets of Rage 3, and I know everyone has the go-to of Streets of Rage 2, but I didn't play that. In fact, I owned 1 and 3. I didn't buy 1 until way later, and I think got it out of a bargain bin, or I bought it from a mate or something. The Mega Drive, the household Mega Drive, wasn't mine, it was my brother's, so I had to play this on his Mega Drive. But I think this was our game. I'm fairly certain Mother bought it for us both. But yeah, so it's in line with the other two games. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and it sees you and either Blaze or Axel or some kid called Skate working their way across the town to defeat a bad guy. Here I'm playing as Zan, who's like a half-robot man, because I like robots. I thought it would be a cool addition. Not the best character to play with. He can't use weapons, but every weapon you do pick up, you can use as a sort of like a charged bowling ball, which is quite handy, I suppose. I'm pretty sure we got this on holiday. I think we went to Carlisle one year. We got a family up in Carlisle, and I remember getting this and playing this in the farmhouse in like the spare room, a spare telly. Brilliant. Excellent game, and the soundtrack is pure fire. Oh, there it is. Super Metroid on the SNES. Now, depending on which day you ask me, this is either my favourite or my second favourite game. It is perfect. It is an absolute masterclass in world building, level design, ambience, atmosphere, music, pacing. Oh, it's just absolutely phenomenal. Which is made all the more surprising when you read a bit about its history and how it was almost pretty much cobbled together within the last 4 months of launch. Apparently they're having real trouble getting the whole place to work together, like all the individual maps to coalesce into one whole. But they did it, and by God, they made an absolute masterpiece. Metroid is a series that doesn't get the credit it should. It's easily on par with Zelda. But the trouble is, they've never done that well in Japan. Like, they've always done okay-ish or downright bad in Japan. It's always been in North America, but more over here, where these games get the respect they deserve. Which is why you have 100 Zelda games and a dozen Metroid games, which is a real shame. But this is the game that perfected Metroidvania. Come fight me. There were games that had this pattern before this one, but this got it absolutely spot on. This nailed it. So the idea that there's one giant world, but you can't go everywhere because you don't have the tools you need. The only game that improves on this concept is Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation. If you're interested in game design, if you're interested in world building, If you're interested in gaming and gaming history, you owe it yourself to play this game. And luck would have it, if you do have a Switch and you pay for the Switch Online subscription service, Super Metroid is included in the SNES Classics. So get on it, have a go, you will not be disappointed. Thomas Was Alone is a phenomenal indie puzzle platformer game made by a chap named Mike Bithell. He's going to make a few other things actually. I think Volume was the other one, where you're sneaking around, stealing things. This game looks like this. It's a series of squares, rectangles, blocky environments, yet it manages to tell one of the most moving and engaging, evolving, heart-wrenching, heartbreaking stories you'll ever play. And it's told from the perspective of geometric shape. Of course, they don't do any talking. All the talking is done by Danny Wallace, who managed to win an award for this. Basically, you are Thomas, and Thomas is a red rectangle. And along the way, you'll meet other shapes, other rectangles. They are other characters. They are all rogue AI. I know how mental this sounds. A game about a bouncing rectangle is profoundly moving. And it is. It's absolutely stellar. Again, this should be mandatory. Everyone should be made to play this game at gunpoint because, again, it's perfect. It's a perfect game. You cannot improve on Thomas Was Alone. It does exactly what it was setting out to do. There's no excuse not to play it. It's on every platform known to man. This is the Vita version. Because when I was living in Japan, I played everything on my Vita. The Vita is such an awesome little indie handheld machine. Incredible. This is on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, mobile phones. I think it's on iOS store now. Maybe even Android, I want to say. I'm pretty sure it is. Get it. Play it. And you'll be blown away. You just won't understand how you can feel these things about geometric shapes and bright colours.
12.
Mario Picross is an example of a nonogram. A nonogram is a puzzle that has a grid and a series of numbers on the axes, and the numbers dictate which blocks should be filled in. That's it. That's the entire game. Using these numbers, you work out what blocks to cut out and what blocks to leave alone, and in doing so, you will create an image. So if we look at the top leftmost number, that's a 9, which means there are 9 blocks connected together in a straight line. We don't know where they are, but somewhere in that line of 15 blocks, there has to be 9 that are continuous. If we look at the block to the right of that, goes 3, 1, 1, 1, 1. That means there's 3 blocks, then at least a gap of 1 before there's another block, before there's a gap of at least 1 before another one, and so on and so on and so on and so on. It's super fun. I know it sounds horrible. It's brilliant. I really like Picross games. Mario Picross is great. Super Mario Picross is great. Mario Picross 2 is great. The Picross series by Jupiter on the Switch and before that DS are also great. The 3D Picross on the 3DS is also great. It's not for everyone. It's got a bit of a cult following. But yeah, I'm a huge fan. It's the only puzzle game I'm even a bit good at. And I'm pretty good because I 100%ed every Picross game I've played now, including this one. Ooh, but it does get hard later on. Ooh, lordy. This is Another World, also known as Out of This World in America, because I like doing things wrong. Just kidding, I love you guys. Very similar to games that went before it, such as Prince of Persia and Flashback. It's using rotoscoped actors and people to better animate the people in the world. It sees you take on the role of Lester, who's a theoretical physicist of sorts. He's doing an experiment in his lab late one night. He gets hit by lightning and his entire setup gets warped to this alien world. And that's it. Insta-death lies around every corner. There's no HUD, there's no hints, there's no button prompts. You've got to work out all for yourself, and that makes it a very rewarding experience. It's really short though. Once you know how to play the game, you can run through it in like, I don't know, 40 minutes or less. I don't know. But yeah, it's a very good game. Bonus fun fact, this is on the SNES, this is the SNES version, which means the scene where he lands in like a Roman bath type area, they censored all the alien butt cracks out. That's true.
10.
Now, if you've been watching every episode of The 100, and if you haven't, why not? Huh? I mentioned way back in episode 1 a game called The Last V8, which isn't a good game. It's not a great game. And I said there would be games in this list that aren't very good, but have some sort of attachment. This is one of those. This is Perfect Dark on the Game Boy Color. Now I know what you're thinking. Perfect Dark on the Nintendo 64 is a goddamn masterpiece. Yes, well done. You have a correct opinion. You may proceed. This isn't as good as that. I don't remember it being particularly hard, but I remember it being unfair. It's also quite slow. This footage here is actually sped up so I could fit more in. So it sees you as Joe Dark finishing your initial training before being sent off on some missions, and the game ends pretty much tying in directly to the N64 main game of Perfect Dark. It's alright. I remember actually very strong memory of playing this in the cinema. I had one of those worm lights, so I was playing this in the cinema while I was waiting for the film to start. How cool am I?
9.
This is Psygnosis's excellent G-Police on the Sony PlayStation. It's a phenomenal achievement for its time. A fully 3D cityscape which you navigate at speed in a weird future helicopter that has no rotors. It's like a jet helicopter thing. And you are the police. So you got to go around and make sure the bad mans aren't doing the bad things. And if they are doing the bad things, you got to kill them with your cannons. We got the staples. We've got ship-to-ship combat. We've got scanning things. We've got escort missions and shooting down ships what are bigger than what you are. But all facetious aside, it is a stonking game. Storyline basically, well, it's not as dissimilar to Colony Wars, really. I think it's the same thing. Like Earth's resources have run out, so we're now in space, and big corporations are running the show, and they're bad because corporations are bad. Takes a lot of inspiration from Blade Runner in the sci-fi city designs. You may notice there's a draw distance of about 12 centimeters, but that's part of the charm. You don't know what's coming. It adds a bit of excitement. You're hammering down the street. There could be a building in front of you. You got 0.3 seconds to work it out and evade it. Brilliant.
Control to Alpha Wing. Go through the tunnel to reach spaceport.
8.
This is it, kids. The last great space combat game. It's TIE Fighter on the IBM PC. You need at least a P120 to run this bad boy. So this is a follow-on to X-Wing. Obviously, while you were flying an X-Wing, you were on the side of the rebels. This time you get to be the baddies, and this is a far superior version. Very, very different though. So TIE Fighters weren't built with pilot safety in mind, in that you have no shields. You're essentially cannon fodder, so it creates a very different gameplay experience to X-Wing, where you have stronger ships, deflector shields, better maneuverability. You're essentially a flying target. But that's not always the case. Later on, you'll get cool ships, you'll get TIE interceptors, you get TIE bombers. Things with a bit more grunt and a bit more safety. One thing that stands out for this is actually playing this around my mate's house. He had like a copied version. He had like a bunch of copied floppy disks. This is the CD version. I got it from GOG.com, so if you fancy having a go to GOG and get a copy of this. It's about £6 or so. This is the CD version, so it's got a full CD soundtrack and digitized speech and all sorts. There was another re-release later on called, I think it's like the collector's version, and it's hideous. They tweak all the graphics and stuff. It's not good. Stick with this one. This is the best one.
7.
It's Mario Paint on the SNES. It had its own little mouse and a solid plastic mouse mat, which is actually really, really quite cumbersome to use. This is brilliant. I had this growing up. I remember, again, this is a Northern holiday collection. We always used to go to the north of England, because that's where my family are from. And we used to go up there and visit them. And I got a memory of getting this and not being able to play it until we got back home. And also me being in the car for like a 5-hour drive, just losing my mind. So it's a paint application, but so much more. You can then animate things. You can make your own music, which is quite fun, I suppose. But if you lack any sort of musical talent, it's not going to go too well for you. There's a colouring book, so you can colour in various scenes. And there's a game called Gnat Attack, which sees you controlling a disembodied fly swatter as you swat gnats. The Gnat Attack is supposed to be like a break from the heavy-going artistic stuff, but it's pretty fast. It's a pretty frantic game. It's surprising how good, how versatile it is. I mean, you could make animations. You'd have to record them to VCR because there was no internal memory, I don't think, so you couldn't save anything on cart. But you could make little animations. You could make your't and then save them to VHS to show your impressed mates. Fun fact: I believe Gnat Attack is an Easter egg inside Mario Maker 2 on the Switch. Yeah, so that's quite fun.
Six.
Now this might look like a fix, but like I said back at the beginning, I put 100 numbers and 100 games, and this is what they came out as. So don't start accusing me of a fix for having 2 Metroids in the final 10. So not only does the Metroid series have the best 2D game, they also have the best pinball games. This is Metroid Prime Pinball on the NDS, and it's phenomenally good. And actually it came with a little rumble pack. So on the original DS Fat and DS Lite, you could put the rumble pack into the Game Boy Advance slot, and it would rumble and vibrate away. Brilliant. So as you play along, you'll unlock challenges, unlock little side bits, like certain enemies from the game will appear, and you've got to kill those. You've got to collect artifacts, like in the real deal. It's very similar to Metroid Prime in its layout and its story, kinda. The environments are the same, so here we're on Talon Overworld, but also there's Space Frigate, there's Fendrana Drifts, all levels are there. It's actually immensely playable. I lost many a good hour to this game. Just absolutely hooked on it. It's the perfect accompaniment to the Metroid Prime series. It's great, so if you feel like taking a break from space solitude, break out your DS, get yourself a copy of Metroid Prime Pinball if you can, and give it a go.
Five.
Eesh, I don't even know how I'm going to begin explaining this game to you fine people. This is Flower, Sun and Rain, Murder Mystery in Paradise. It's a grasshopper manufacture game, and of course that means Goichi Suda. Now Goichi Suda intentionally makes weird, awkward, quite funny games. There always is like a key mechanic which is repeated again and again and again and again and again. This game's mechanic is where you will get the clue to a puzzle, usually from a guidebook, a hotel guidebook. You'll go through the guidebook, you'll find the clue, you will take a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 digit number, you'll enter that on a wheel inside your briefcase, which will unlock a card, which then you take to a hotel lobby to get a reward, which is probably another card or another mystery or some exposition. And it's bonkers, it's absolutely bananas. So you're Sumiyamondo. You've landed on this island, you don't know who sent you there, but just remember you've got to be there to do this job. You're a searcher, you have to find something. It turns out there's a terrorist attack that's going to happen on the island, and you've got to stop it before it happens. There's a lot going on. What's interesting is that the puzzles kind of hold up the exposition. It slows a lot of things down. There is a story in there, but the burden of solving the puzzles becomes overwhelming at a point. It's a nice idea, it's a nice gauge of what one man's vision can and can't do. And it's also the perils of what one man's vision can and can't do. If you fancy a less mental and far more enjoyable Goichi Suda game, I highly recommend No More Heroes. That is an absolute riot.
Four.
So I know what you're thinking, this looks like a cheap Resident Evil knockoff. And it isn't. This is actually Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem on the GameCube. And it's a much more psychological horror. So you control Alex, who's gone back to her family homestead, and while she's there she finds this little secret compartment and there's a hidden book. There's the Tome of the Eternal Darkness. And as she's reading it, she reads about the history of this ancient evil. And as she reads, she relives these adventures, these stories. One of the first things is as a Roman centurion, He's off looting and pillaging as they want to do, but he gets lured away by this voice he can hear in his head. And it's one of the ancient evils beckoning him to come find it. Now what's interesting about this game is that it employs something called sanity effects. As you go along through the game, and depending on your character's mental fortitude, you will start seeing effects. So the more mad stuff that happens, the higher your sanity meter goes, and the more at risk you are. So you might start seeing things, or you might start taking damage, or your GameCube might threaten to format your memory card. All these horrible things you really don't want to happen. Yeah, it wasn't very well received. It was well received critically, but commercially it didn't do too well. And there was a sequel that never happened, which is a shame because it is an exceptional horror game.
Three.
This is Solar Winds on the PC. Now, fun little story about this. I played this a lot. I didn't realise, being young and a bit thick, that it was actually shareware, and this is only part one of a much bigger story. I played the living heck out of this and never sussed, or presumably never got to the end of this shareware section. But this game has stuck with me forever. It's a cracking top-down space exploration game, all told through conversation and violence. Brilliant. One thing, it's very slow. The map is huge and your ship is less than rapid. Along the way you'll meet hostile aliens which you've got to kill. You can use their explosions to power your ships. You can develop your ships, you can get any weapons for it. Classic space adventure stuff. So the story is your protagonist is just making his way through the universe, and all of a sudden he uncovers a plot, a conspiracy, where certain people are conspiring with aliens to do things for reasons. Also there's a little subplot that like we, us humans, the real humans like you and me, are distinct from these humans. Like we were separated at some point millions of years ago, and we're going to start kind of coalescing at some point. So now I'm all grown up, I might actually get around to playing part 2 of Solar Winds, part 2, The Escape. If you found something a bit slow and sedate and something very classic sci-fi, give Solar Winds a try.
2.
Grab hold of your cosh, kids. It's time for Road Rash 2 on the Sega Mega Drive. The pinnacle of the series and an excellent arcade motorbike racer. What separates this from games like Super Hang-On is that you can punch and kick your opponents. Brilliant. And use weapons. Sometimes your opponents will be carrying a kosh or a chain. You can take it off them and then clobber them to death with it. So you get to blast your way across 5 racetracks, listening to the expertly composed music of Rob Hubbard, and each time you finish a race you get a bit more money. With that money you can put it towards a nice new, faster, shinier bike. Or you can just find the cheat online and enter it in the password section and get the best bike in the game. Oh jeez, do you remember those? Not too long ago, a spiritual successor in the form of Road Redemption was released on Xbox One, PS4 and Switch, and it's not as good. It's a bit mean, it's a bit cruel, a bit mean-spirited actually. The violence in this game is quite cartoony. You can imagine, you know, them all going to a pub after the race and being all like, oh, I'll get you next time, and like, oh, I don't think you will, and then hugging. Whereas Road Redemption, you actually decapitate people. It's just not as fun. So this is another game I would have played on my brother's Mega Drive. I don't think we ever actually owned this. I think we borrowed it off one of his mates and played it a lot. I think my brother had like a compendium of Mega Drive cheats, and that's how we found out how to get all the money in the game. Brilliant. Another thing missing from games today, the simple joy of using cheats.
One.
Well, it pretty much had to be, didn't it? It's Metroid Prime on the Wii, my second or favourite game of all time. As you can see, it's very different from the previous entries. This one's in 3D. It's a 3D explore 'em up. It's a first-person Metroidvania game. All the elements from the previous games are here. You have limited abilities which hamper your progress through the overworld. You've got to level up your abilities to go and see everything. Now, it carries a lot of stuff over from the the SNES game. The same atmosphere, the same isolation, the same kind of dread. I mean, not so much in this game, because this game is significantly easier than Super Metroid. I mean, Super Metroid in itself is actually quite easy. This game, boss battles aside, it's pretty much a cakewalk for anyone who plays it. I think that's by design. If it's too hard and too difficult, you kind of might be dissuaded from exploring and really looking for all the hidden stuff. Also, while you're exploring, you should be looking out for the lore. There is a heck of a lot of stuff tucked away and can only be read and discovered by scanning everything. Now, some people dislike the scanning. I obviously think it's pretty good because you can learn a lot more about the planet, about yourself, strange enough, and what's going on in the wider universe. Like, why is this planet now uninhabited? What happens to people who used to live here? Turns out the people who used to live there are the same people who gave you your armour and your weapons back in the day. Samus Aran was actually raised by a bird-like race of people called the Chozo. An offshoot of these people actually moved to this planet, as featured in this game, and developed this very basic lifestyle. And this is why all the weapons you pick up on this world can miraculously work with your alien armour. The world design is phenomenal. The areas, the biomes in the game are just so staggeringly varied. So you have the Talon overworld, the lush, green, foggy, rainy world you saw at the beginning there. There is the Chozo ruins, which are ancient, decrepit. And there's Magmore Caverns, which is the underground geothermal plant as used by the space pirates. There's the amazing Fendrana drifts. And I've got to say, throughout the game, there's some of the best music you'll ever hear. The music is absolutely phenomenal, so much so that when I was in Japan, I actually bought the CD soundtrack. Until No Man's Sky came along, this is the closest thing to being an explorer in space. The idea of exploration is way more prevalent than the idea of shooting things. Someone like me likes finding things, likes discovering lore, likes finding hidden lore, like lore that isn't overtly told to you in a hand-holdy fashion. You've got to discover things for yourself, and the architecture and the enemies and the layout of the place is actually telling its own extra story. I'll never get bored of it, I'll never get tired of it, and it's something I think everyone should have a crack at. And hopefully there's talk of a Switch port coming soon, and I cannot wait. I will be there day one. That was it. That was the 100. Like I said, 2 years in the making, almost. Started making this in September of 2018. Now we are at the beginning of August. And what a different place the world is now. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've watched, and like I said at the very beginning, I hope that you've seen something that's piqued your interest in something you've gone and played yourself. That'd be totally amazing. I've always tried to not make this just a list of games that I have. I try to avoid pretension. I try to avoid a bunch of niche and like cult games that no one really likes, but people are like, oh yeah, I've got that. Yeah, it's brilliant. So I tried to make a list free of pretension, and I realised that in some episodes I didn't make enough detail about why these games matter to me. So I tried in this episode particularly to throw a little something in there to explain why it's on here, not just because it's a game I have in my collection. So overall, was this a success? I don't know. It kept me busy. It turns out making like a list is massive work. Massive work. I won't be doing it again. But I have enjoyed it, so I think I will make more like pre-recorded stuff, more video essays. I've got a few ideas of things I want to work, a few videos I'd like to make, a few games I want to talk about. So stick around. I might even rebrand. The kind of hand-drawn pink background is the original plan for this, right? Not be funny. The original plan for the 100 was to kill my channel off. When I got to 0, I was just going to wipe it as sort of like, some sort of performance art. But I can't be asked for that either. So I'm just going to, I might do a bit of rebranding and come back with video essays and like be a real boy. But until then, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for watching these. If you watched them all, brilliant. Thank you. Bless you. I hope it hasn't been a grind. And I hope you've got something out of it. I'd love to hear about your reactions. Again, if I've triggered any of your memories, maybe you've seen some games you've forgotten about, or again, like if you played something from the list and experienced it for yourself. Keep playing the games, and don't be a dick. That's all the advice I have to give there. Again, my eternal gratitude for watching, and I'll catch you on the next vid. Take care.